Hi, Vicki. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with a language coach. This is one of our favorite series that we have here at ILCA, and we are very excited to feature you this month.
Thank you very much. And I'm feeling very honoured to be featured and really excited to have an interview after a bit of a long history with ILCA, with really starting out on the language coaching path with yourselves. So a great honour.
Absolutely. Can you introduce yourself for our audience?
Yes, of course. So, well, my name is Vicki, as we've already said, and I'm currently based in the southwest of France, so very near to the Spanish border, and about an hour away from Biarritz, if people know where that is. So in that sort of southwest corner, near the Atlantic Ocean and near the Pyrenees. It's a very beautiful place. And I arrived here about 13 years ago, and my path really came from sort of business and industry, where I worked in technology and very much looked at working with customers and looking at management. And that was where my original qualifications were from sort of a degree in maths and computing, and then leading to managerial, and then having an MBA in that. And then when I moved to France, I really decided to have a bit of a step back and decided to move into teaching English. So something different to start to integrate into the culture. And I started with a CELTA course, and that really was the thing that got me going on this path. And then I've just really been practicing, experimenting, doing different things. I'm currently completing a DIP TESOL. That's something else I've been doing. And I've also done a diploma in English and French that really has been helping me with understanding languages, looking a little bit about culture, different elements of language learning. And then coaching, that's the new thing I've been doing. So really for a year and a half, I've been working with ILCA, going through their field programme. And I'm one of the first graduates of that programme. So happy to say that. Yay. And then, and having done a couple of courses with ILCA, it really inspired me to look further into coaching. And I've recently completed a pure coaching course and qualification. And I'm currently working to becoming accredited with that and looking for ICF accreditation. So that's where I'm at the moment. So,
Yeah, really wonderful. Thank you for explaining all of that. You know, this series is called Interview with a Language Coach, right? And then you just said something about pure coaching. So I'd love it if we could kind of jump into what language coaching is to you, and then eventually what your journey into that has been, right? And that might just be as simple as how you work with coaching in a language learning context, right? So I'd love to hear about that from you, because you are quite well versed. You have been through this long program with ILCA for language coaching, and you're doing pure coaching certification through ICF. So let's hear it. I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think for me, in terms of language coaching, it's a little bit of a crossover between, I think, the language teaching and coaching. So I feel really when I'm in that moment with a student or a learner, is sometimes I have to be a coach, sometimes I have to be a bit of a teacher. And it's sort of moving in this sort of continuum of teaching and coaching. So it's really seeing where the learner is and seeing what's appropriate at that moment. And sometimes it may be more on the pure coaching side. So really discovering, you know, what are their objectives in a way, what are their motivations, what's really going on inside, where, for example, there may be a little bit of a blockage or an obstacle, how to sort of navigate around that and really get in touch with their inner self and get the awareness. So sometimes it can be like that. It does depend on the learner. So it's really seeing what's appropriate at that moment. And then other times it may be that they really need a bit of input. They're struggling with something in the language that they do need a little bit of input. It may be from me or something that they go away and discover for themselves on that. So it's really sort of testing the water, seeing what's needed at any time. So it's sort of that continuum, teaching, language coaching and seeing what's appropriate at any moment with that. So
I thank you so much for laying that out. I think that that is very rich, what you've just said, because what I love about it is that you're owning that sliding scale and the way that you move on it. You know, at Ilka, we always talk about there's a sliding scale and you've got teaching on one end and coaching on the other, and maybe training in the middle. But actually, what you're proposing is that it's language coaching that's in the middle of that. And that is really cool. I like I like thinking about that. And you're absolutely right, though, that there is this a lot of that comes down to that expectation of the learner as well. Which leads me to that next question of what was your journey into this? Like what, you know, is it the learners you were working with? What is it that led you into this exploration of language coaching and pure coaching? And
Mhm. Yeah. I think there's probably like two real threads to it. I think there's the teaching thread, which has been really this gradual progression as I become, I suppose, more expert at teaching, is that after a certain time, it becomes very autonomous or automatic in a way to teach. You sort of know in your head, like the grammar, the vocabulary, so it becomes quite automatic, this teaching. And I found when it became automatic, it's like, what else is there? What more could I be doing? What more could I be doing to help the learner? So it's really, I started to identify more with them, you know, what's going on behind what they're doing, you know, why are they thinking like that? And certain questions I started to ask, I was getting sort of, in a sense, unexpected answers. They weren't necessarily language. There could be a little bit that was opening up about their motivation. It's sometimes it would be, oh, I've never really wanted to learn English. I've got bad memories, things that started being revealed in the lessons. And I was thinking, oh, there's obviously a bit more to this. It's not just about the teaching, it's about what's going on with that particular learner. And so gradually starting to explore that and seeing how, you know, it made a difference. If we maybe cleared that out of the way and created something new, the motivation increased. There was this starting to get self-awareness of why they're learning, why they're not learning. So it was turning that around a bit. And then also, I followed a few training courses on the learner-centered approach, which again is putting it back to the learner, what's going on there. So really taking it away from the teacher and putting it on the learner with that. So I think that's been a gradual exploration of teaching and feeling there's a little bit more to it with the learners. And then I think the other thread has probably come from my previous career, where I worked with customers a lot. And really, I had to deal with problems they had, how we'd sort those out. And I think I developed like very much active listening with that. It was really, you know, what are they saying? How can we improve things? How can we work together? So I think it was that active listening of being present to somebody within that. So I think two threads really, my previous work and then teaching as it became more automatic. What else was there within this environment that I could start to work with to really improve and increase the learning experience and I think the progress and results.
Wonderful. You mentioned a learner-centric approach and putting it back on the learner. I'm wondering if you can, you know, go a little bit deeper into what are we putting back on the learner?
Okay, so I think various elements of what we're putting back is, I think ultimately it is about ownership. So it's an ownership of their learning, their responsibility within that, and not just to have the teacher is there to do it for me, to teach me, but it's really this inner aspect of being responsible, owning that I'm the person who's going to learn here. So rather than this passive element, it's like, okay, you're the learner, what are you going to do? But it's also passing back control to them. So it's ownership and control, which can also be a little bit uncomfortable as a teacher, teachers are used to, lesson plans, what we're doing, what the course of the lesson is, but it's about, in a sense, throwing the hat over to the learner and saying, okay, it's this idea of the flipping the classroom in a way, what is it that you want to do? What is really important for you versus what I as a teacher want to teach you? And it's really getting the self-awareness, ownership, and then responsibility, but then also at the same time as a teacher working with that, so working together, and then sometimes guiding and providing some expertise as necessary within sort of the language context.
I love that. Wow. Thank you for that, for explaining that. I have a feeling that learners would be in very good hands with you.
Thank you.
So speaking of, if we have any learners that are watching this today and wanting some kind of advice for taking that ownership of it, what do you have advice for learners out there?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing is really identifying your goals and really identifying and also discovering your goals, your objectives. So take a bit of time to reflect on that and really, what are my goals versus what are goals that are maybe given to me, like reach a certain level, do this. It's like, really, what would make the difference for me in these goals? What are my objectives? Is it really something that, I'd like something personal as well as reaching a certain level? So really that identifying and discovering your goals within that. And then I think following on from that is really like developing self-awareness, is really looking inside again and thinking about, what are my skills? What are my strengths? What do I like? What do I don't like? What methods could work for me? What's really the things that will motivate me in the learning process? And really starting to explore those and develop the self-awareness within that. And once we've done this discovery of goals, exploring and getting the self-awareness, is thinking about, okay, methods. What could I do? Do I love watching series on TV, for example? Could that be something that, really comes into my head? I start to learn from that. So it's really the individual methods that would really be good for me. Or could it be, I really love literature? Maybe I could really focus on that, something like that. Maybe it's conversation. Maybe I'd like to meet somebody, a foreigner, and how can I develop that type of language? So it's really exploring different opportunities and methods that work for sort of me as an individual within that. So I think really, discovering goals and objectives, developing that self-awareness, and then exploring different methods and techniques on really increasing sort of the language and reaching those goals ultimately.
I think that's great. I love it that you've given this space for discovery, right? So it's not just like know your goals or identify your goals, but like actually the word discover your goals and take the time, give space for those goals to emerge, because people really might not know, or I would assume, some learners have goals that they aren't aligned with or really maybe haven't revisited in many years. So just rediscovering, why is this truly important to me?
And I think that's something interesting, because quite often when you ask for an initial goal or an objective, it's like, I need to increase my vocabulary, I need to be fluent. But it's really, exploring that deeper and what is actually below that. Okay, vocabulary, why do you need it? What type of vocabulary? What's that going to give you when you've got that vocabulary? So it's really sort of discovering what's beneath that, which is really what would help the learner to reach the level or where they want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, so you are someone that, you've got this career in language coaching and working with learners, and you have a long career in business in your background, like many things. What advice would you give other professionals that are wanting to get more into this, or maybe wanting to come into the field of language teaching, coaching? Maybe they're already here, maybe they're language teachers and they're wanting to upskill in coaching. What is your advice for professionals?
Mhm. So again, I think a few things is, again, really thinking about how you teach at the moment. Are there any aspects of coaching that you've possibly tried, you didn't think about it, but then you might think, oh, well, okay, all these questions I ask, I'm listening really attentively and I can hear things sort of changing there. So think about what you possibly already do in sort of this coaching approach, and how things have maybe changed a little bit with the students when you don't teach as much, when there's the space to explore. So there's that element of looking inwards towards yourself. Then, of course, I'd recommend going on a training course, something that can really get you some firm ideas on what is coaching, to really clarify it for yourself, and to see what elements you could bring into your particular situation. So everybody is a bit different. If you're working with children or adults, professional, in a school, it might be a slightly different type of coaching. So really think about what type of coaching would work in my situation, and doing that. And think about also how much you want to delve into coaching. Is it something you could just try a little bit to start with, see how it goes? So really experiment. So experiment with a few different techniques, just really around objective setting. Maybe try, a simple sort of SWOT analysis, looking at strengths, weaknesses, and looking at that, SMART goals, really trying to get some of their objectives clarified in a different way. Maybe bringing in things like photos, images, having, learners look at those. Does that inspire them? Does it bring something in to start getting into this different sort of mindset? Right. And really always focusing on positivity. So positivity in the room. So looking towards the goals rather than looking at maybe the problems, and really changing or looking at mindsets with people, how to sort of shift a bit from problems to growth and how we can develop. So I think summing that up a little bit, looking at yourself, what you do already, discovering a course that you could possibly do, seeing how you can take elements out of that, but really blending it into your own environment at the moment, how you teach, who your current students are, and really adapting it to your own needs.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, Vicki, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really wonderful, really important with our, I'm sure that our listeners and our viewers are going to get so much out of this. Thank you for bringing your experience and your advice to this interview with a language coach.
You're welcome. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah. For anyone watching that wants to get in touch with Vicki, her website and contact information will be in the video description. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.